Well, we guessed the title of the Acolyte episode 5 would be Night, and we guessed the true identity of the Master, but what we didn't guess was just how amazing this episode was going to be, and just how expendable some of our main characters would end up. This is a High Republic story after all, and I can't wait to get into everything this episode had to offer. But before we get into my thoughts, welcome back to my channel. I'm Scotty Holiday, a queer Star Wars creator. Please consider liking, subscribing, and following me on social media for all my latest Star Wars content. So right from the start, this episode was not afraid to go dark. Not only were the losses high, but the kills were brutal. This episode begins with Osha stumbling back towards Kelnaka's hut, falling and immediately coming face to face with a dead Jedi. From here, she watches the Master take on 5 different Jedi at once, where he not only injures Yord, but kills the other 4, with the most brutal killing showing him impale one Jedi, and then use the Force to impale the other with his saber still through the body of the first. Later in the episode, the Master kills Jecki, stabbing her through the chest 3 times right in front of Master Soul, and snaps Yord's neck with his bare hands, leaving Soul as the lone survivor in the end. This was probably the most brutal and lethal kills with the lightsaber in Star Wars we've seen since Han Solo's death in The Force Awakens. Going into the episode, I expected all of the unnamed Jedi to die. However, I did not expect to see the deaths of both Jecki and Yord, let alone in the same episode. At least with Jecki, we got to see her be truly badass multiple times prior to her demise, something I definitely want to talk about later in the video, along with the fight choreography in general. But poor Yord. The Yord Horde, including myself, are wrecked, and I'm kind of bummed he didn't get his own moment to shine. In theorizing about this episode, I expected Yord would be the one to die and kind of mentally prepared myself for that, but I was not prepared for Jecki. Did I expect to see her survive the entire series? Not necessarily, but I did not expect her to die mid-season. I'm sad to see both of them go, and honestly, I hope we get to see more of their stories someday in additional Star Wars media. Charlie Barnett and Daphne Keane were great additions to this cast, and they'll definitely be missed. 8 Jedi landed on Kofar at the beginning of episode 4, and at the end of episode 5, only one of them walked away. Speaking of the kills, we also have to talk about the lightsaber duels, and to preface this, I grew up with the Prequel Trilogy, so my standard for lightsaber duels is pretty high. I wasn't a fan of the fight choreography in the sequel trilogy and haven't loved many of the fights we've seen in other Star Wars series on Disney Plus from a technical or spectacle standpoint. I feel like a lot of the duels from the sequels onward have been more emotionally driven than anything else, which can work really well as we saw in the original trilogy films. However, aside from Anakin vs Ahsoka or Obi-Wan vs Vader, I haven't been emotionally invested in any other lightsaber duels we've seen. The Acolyte, however, seemed to focus more on the choreography of the dueling, or the spectacle of it all, and that's what really made me love every one of these duels in this episode, with my highlights being every single fight Jecki was involved in, as well as Soul vs Qimir. Whether it was hand-to-hand or lightsaber combat, everything seemed so fast and so effortless throughout the episode. I loved seeing both Jecki and Qimir switch between forward and reverse grips, with Jecki even dual-wielding against Qimir with moves that look straight out of the Clone Wars animated series that Ahsoka would do. I literally had the biggest smile on my face watching Jecki in this episode. I also loved seeing Qimir using his helmet to disengage the lightsabers of his opponents. This was such a cool concept to see on screen, and I really loved the special effects of it all. Seeing the saber switch off and spark for a few seconds, then reigniting just looked really cool. His helmet is also confirmed to be made of cortosis, a material pre-established in Star Wars canon, known to withstand a lightsaber blow and briefly short out the blades. We also got to see Qimir dual wield his lightsaber as a split saber, which was really awesome as well. I love these duels so much that I actually watched through the credits just to find out who the fight coordinators were, so I have to give a huge shout out to Guillermo Grispo and Lu Jun Chang for the work they did with these fights. I really think episode 5 of the Acolyte gave us the best lightsaber duels we've seen in live-action Star Wars since the prequel trilogy, and I hope this inspires the duels of the following series and films to aim for the same excellence the Acolyte was able to pull off. Let me know what you thought of the lightsaber duels in the comments below. So at this point, we have to talk more about Qimir. While his reveal as the Master didn't come as a surprise to many, myself included, I'm kinda eating my words a bit. I didn't love the idea of Qimir being the Sith at first because it felt like the obvious choice, but the way Manny Jacinto embodied the character after he was unmasked, I'm sold. Halfway through the episode, Osha asks Yord what exactly the Master is, with Yord telling her, I don't know. He doesn't follow the rules of combat, and there's no method to his movements. It doesn't make sense. He gets into your head and stays there. And this was honestly the perfect way to explain it. Qimir is such a chilling villain with and without the mask, but you also can't take your eyes off of him. He's really hot too, which makes him even more captivating when he's on screen. Plus, those arms, I'd want to be his acolyte too. There's two specific lines of dialogue Qimir says in this episode that I believe we can learn the most from. After his face is revealed, he tells Sol, "Mae exposed me, so now I have to kill every last one of you. I don't make the rules, the Jedi do. And the Jedi say I can't exist. They see my face, they all die." Immediately it seems to me that Qimir and Mae may have more in common than we think. Qimir tells Sol, "I have no name, but the Jedi like you might call me Sith." Our first mention of the word Sith in the series so far, and says he wants the freedom to wield his power the way he likes, without having to answer to the Jedi. Mother Anisea also says something similar in episode 3, telling the twins, "The galaxy is not a place that welcomes women like us, witches who have the abilities we do. This isn't about good or bad, this is about power and who is allowed to use it." At face value, both Qimir and Mother Anisea want the freedom to use their power in the way they choose. They both view the Jedi Order as a group that tries to dictate good from bad, right from wrong, based on Jedi teachings and beliefs, eradicating any other groups that may oppose them, which is extremely similar to what we saw with colonialism and the spread of Christianity in our own world. I think Qimir exploits these beliefs in Mae and really plays into her trauma, taking advantage of her emotions and pain to make her believe they want the same thing, when really he's just using her to further his own goals. She's clearly terrified of him, or else she wouldn't have spent the past 2 episodes trying to get as far away from him as she could, which I'm sure is a huge part of the power dynamic he has over her. Overall, it's very Sith. What's more curious though is Qimir's line at the end where he says, "Even in the revelation of our triumph, you see the depth of our despair." And I can't help but wonder if he too was wronged by the Jedi in his past as well. Moving on to Sol, up until this episode, I believed Sol's guilt over whatever happened on Brendok was solely based on the actions of his Jedi companions, but now I'm not so sure. After witnessing both Jecki and Yord's deaths, Sol gives into his emotions and anger, literally beating Qimir to the ground and grabbing his lightsaber to deal the killing blow, but Osha is actually the one to pull him back to his senses. Qimir takes advantage of this moment, asking Osha, "You trust him even after everything he did to you?" and tells Sol, "I've accepted my darkness. What have you done with yours?" Later when Osha asks Sol what Qimir meant, Sol tells her he'll explain, but Mae stuns him before he can continue, thus planting seeds of doubt between Osha and Sol. And this has me a bit worried for Sol as a character and his relationship with Osha, because from the beginning, he's been such a parental figure and clearly cares deeply for her. But the idea of there being malice behind his good intentions would be really sad to see. If the series goes that route, which I'm thinking it will, I wonder if Sol's motivations throughout the entire season will be revealed as a sort of repentance for his past mistakes. Hopefully episode 6 or 7 will finally give us some revelations as to what really happened on Brendok all those years ago. We also have to talk about the twin switch. So towards the end of the episode, as the sun rises in the distance, Osha and Mae finally have a moment to confront one another, and the imagery of the scene plays out just like their final encounter on Brendok, with Osha even asking Mae, "What have you done?" Mae says she did what she needed to do for Osha and their family, but Osha tells her, "Everything you've done has been for yourself. All of these lives lost tonight, again, all because of you." Throughout their conversation, it's clear that Mae is hurting and feels like Osha chose the Jedi over her, saying, "They brainwashed you. They turned you against me." But Osha sees the Jedi as her saviors, saying she would have died with the rest of her family in the fire Mae started, if not for the Jedi and Sol. I think the line that cut the deepest for me was when Osha tells Mae, "Those Jedi were more of my family than you ever were." At the end of their conversation, I was really surprised with Osha's response toward Mae's embrace, because it really seemed like Osha was finally going to let her sister back in. But she uses this vulnerable moment to her advantage, attempting to take Mae down and arrest her. But at this point in the series, it's already been established that Mae is the more cutthroat of the two, so it's no surprise that she was able to outmatch Osha, throwing in the cheeky line, "You never could block." From here, Mae cuts her hair with a lightsaber and switches clothes with her sister, returning to find Sol as Osha, and we see them leave the planet together, leaving the real Osha to be found by Qimir. It's not clear whether or not Sol nor Qimir recognize that the twins have switched places in this moment, but I'd like to think they do, and that Sol specifically is just playing coy for the time being. So in the end, Qimir survives the Umber Moths, Mae and Osha switch places, unbeknownst to Osha, and Bazil recovers a part of Pip that will most likely play into the uncovering of the twin switch. Let me know your thoughts on the Acolyte episode 5 and what you think will happen next in the comments down below, or join my Discord to continue the conversation there. Make sure to like, subscribe, and consider following me on social media at ScottyHolidaySW for all my latest Star Wars content. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.